Hey guys, this is SJ Football 16, and today I will be revealing my predictions for Week 11 of the Barclays Premier League season 2015 to 16. I'm going to start with the early game kickoff between Chelsea and Liverpool, a big game as you may know. As for Chelsea, it's probably the biggest game because Jose Mourinho might get sacked if they lose it. I think it's going to be a 2-all draw in this game because Chelsea haven't had the best of seasons and Liverpool, they're just getting started under Klopp, so I think it's going to be 2-2, and their squads are both similar in terms of ability. So I think the scores for Chelsea are going to be Diego Costa and Gary Cahill, and the scores for Liverpool are going to be Martin Skrtel and Moreno. Now I'm going to head over to the game between Crystal Palace and Manchester United. Crystal Palace are trying to get Europa League football this year, and Manchester United are trying to get Champions League football this year, and even pushing for a title challenge this year. I think the score in this is going to be 1-1 because Crystal Palace have played really well against the big sides so far this season. They've only just lost to them, and I think Manchester United are probably the smallest of the biggest sides this season, behind Manchester City and Manchester City and Arsenal. And I think Palace have played really well this season, apart from in those games. And I think it will be 1-1, and the scorers are going to be Scott Dan for Crystal Palace and Memphis Depay for Manchester United. Now I'm going to head over to the game between Manchester City and Norwich City. I think there are a lot of shocks in the Barclays Premier League season, and I think this could indeed be one of them, because Norwich have had a good season so far, apart from the game against Newcastle. They've played really well in every game and fought to the best of their ability, and if they play as well in the other games as they do in this, or even play better, I think it will be a 2-all draw. And Manchester City, they've pretty much had it all their own way, but I think it could go downhill for them. And I think the scorers are going to be Yaya Toure will score both of them for Manchester City, and Alexander Tete will score both of the goals for Norwich City. Now I'm going to head over to the game between Newcastle and Stoke. I actually reckon this is going to be quite tight, because Newcastle, they're fighting for survival this season. Stoke, they're trying to get they're trying to fight for a top 10 place this year as well. And I think Newcastle, they may have the upper hand because they're in a more dangerous position. However, Stoke have a better squad on paper, and that is why I think they're going to beat Newcastle 1-0. And I think the score is going to be Charlie Adam, because Stoke, they are the better side in general out of both of them, and they're in a better position and they've got less to lose. However, Newcastle, they've got everything to lose in this game, and there's real pressure on them this season to stay in the division or even keep Steve McLaren as their manager. Now I'm going to head over to the game between Swansea City and Arsenal. I think the score in this is going to be 2-0 to Arsenal, no doubt about that. This is because I think Arsenal have by far the better squad on paper, and Swansea aren't playing too well this season, as they've shown in recent games. The only game they've really played well in is against Liverpool, and they haven't won at home since the game against Manchester United, which they only just managed to win. But I think they won't be able to do it against Arsenal. Arsenal have played well throughout every single game this season, apart from maybe against one or two sides this season. I don't think their form is going to drop in this game. I think the scorers are going to be Hector Bellerin and Theo Walcott for Arsenal, because Bellerin, he can be a real threat on the attack and in defence, and he's really quick, and so is Walcott. He can be a real threat on the attack, and he's really quick on the attack. And yeah, now I'm going to head over to the game between Watford and West Ham. I think the score in this is going to be a 0-0 draw. This is because Watford, they've had a really good run this season. They they won 2-0 away to Stoke last week, and I can't see why they can't do well this week against West Ham. And Stoke and West Ham, their squad are quite similar in terms of ability, but because West Ham have had better form this season, I think it's going to end up being a draw. And I don't think West Ham will do as well as they have in their previous games this season, but I think it's going to be a good point, a well fought point, and a nil draw because both been form wise in the last few games. They've been playing both the same. Now I'm going to head over to the West Brom and Leicester City match, a Midlands derby. I think the score in this is going to be 2-1 to Leicester. This is because Leicester have a better form, a run of form this season, beating quite a few sides this season. The only games they haven't really done that well in are against possibly some of the sides in the top four. Arsenal, for example, they didn't do so well against. And West Brom, they haven't really had that good of a run so far, and they're picking up their form at the moment, but I don't think they'll manage to get a point against Leicester. I think it's going to be 2-1 to Leicester, and I think the scorers are going to be James Morrison for West Brom, as he's a really good central midfielder, as he's shown over the last few years. And I think Nathan Dyer is going to score both of the goals for Leicester, the on-form man from Swansea. He's played really well since joining them, and I can't see why he can't pop a few past West Brom this week. Now I'm going to head over to the Sunday kickoff between Everton and Sunderland. I think the score in this is going to be 3-2 to Everton. It's because Everton have a much better squad on paper, and they have a much better run in form so far. However, I think Sunderland will begin to pick up their form as they did against Newcastle, and I can't see why they can't do well against Everton, or even maybe push them towards the final whistle but not get the final result that they want. And this is why I think it's only going to be 3-2 and not possibly 3-1 or 3-0. And I think the scorers for Everton are going to be Romelu Lukaku, Gareth Barry and Stephen Naismith. And for Sunderland, I think it's going to be Fabio Borini and Jordi Gomez. Now I'm going to head over to the South Coast derby between Southampton and Bournemouth. I think the score in this is going to be 2-1 to Southampton. This is because Bournemouth, they've had quite an alright run so far, and Southampton, they've done quite well this season, but form-wise, Southampton have only just done better than Bournemouth. They haven't done that much better than them. And also, Bournemouth, they have clinical strikers, but Southampton, I'm going to say Southampton are going to win because they have the better squad on paper, and also they have a slightly better form than Bournemouth. I think it's going to be 2-1, with the scorers being Jay Rodriguez for Southampton with 2, and Glenn Murray will score the only goal for Bournemouth, as he's been a brilliant signing for them this season, and I can't see why he can't pick up his form again against away to Southampton. And finally, I'm going to head over to the Monday kickoff between Tottenham Hotspur and Aston Villa. Aston Villa are yet to bring in their new manager, and Tottenham, they've had quite a good run so far. However, I think this could be another one of the shocks this season. I think it's going to end up being 2-2 in this game, with the scorers being Eric Dyer and Kyle Walker for Tottenham, and Kieran Richardson and Micah Richards are going to score for Aston Villa. Just because I think if Aston Villa bring in a good new manager early enough, I think they could capitalise on Tottenham's weaknesses that they have in their squad. And Tottenham, they're going to go into the game thinking it's going to be really easy because they haven't brought in their manager yet. But I think the squad could perform well regardless of them not having a manager with them at the moment, because their squad has done really well. has done quite well in some of their games this season, but in recent games, as we saw, Tim Sherwood wasn't good enough to stay, and so we had to leave. And this is why I think it's going to be 2-2. That's all from me for today. Don't forget to like this video, don't forget to subscribe if you're new to this channel, and don't forget to comment on any changes that you recommend to me. So I'll see you guys next time.